Just give me a minute.
We are live now.
Okay.
Right. That shirt was
John.
causing just that shirt was, because it was a striped shirt, it looked very odd.
Yeah, we are now streaming on YouTube as well, and
Okay.
we have some participants joining. Yeah, let's just give a couple of more minutes for more people an opportunity to join.
Sure. Krishna, you can tell me when to start, when uh, people have entered the waiting room, or once they are admitted into the webinar, you let me know when to start, then I can start.
Sure, Raja. For the people who have already joined, warm welcome. Thank you for the patience. Yep, Haja, I think we can go ahead and start. We have some participants already joining, and by the way we introduce, I hope we'll have more. So why don't we begin?
Yep, sure. Okay. Right. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, if you're in a different time zone. So I'm Haji. I'm a digital transformation consultant, and together with Mahesh Kumar Boka of Calton Tech, we will be jointly presenting this topic today. Topic is top 3 digital transformation levers B2B leaders deploy to accelerate growth, especially in this current pandemic situation. So in terms of our agenda for today, let me just move that. Yeah. So I'll give you an insights. I'll share you the insights, the 3 levers which are useful in my view, based on my own experience in industry as well as consulting. And then we will hand it over to Mahesh to introduce Calton Tech. They have kindly sponsored this webinar and done all the marketing as well as the preparation for this. So I want to thank them to start with. After that, we will have a Q&A. And really, we want to make this session as interactive as possible. So it's your opportunity to ask me and Mahesh as many questions as you would like, and to, so that we can share with you our perspectives and our experience. Hopefully that is valuable to you. Now, in order to do that, on Zoom, there's a Q&A button. So if you just get to the Zoom bar, you should be able to see a Q&A button. Just click that and type in your questions. Now, either I will stop the presentations as we go along and answer your question, if that's appropriate, or we will wait until the end of the session to get to your questions. Now, brilliant. And then at the end of this session, we have something for you in exchange for your time. You have kindly contributed your time to this. We want to give something back, and that's to book a session with me and Mahesh or the wider Calton team to talk about any specific projects you are working on. And we are doing that on a completely free basis. So I'll share more details of that right at the end of the webinar. So hang in there. We'll tell you how you can get that. Good. Now, digital transformation, that's a big topic. And especially those of you who are working in a B2B environment know some of the huge challenges that comes along with trying to do a digital transformation in your industry or business. Now, unlike banking or retail, which have gone quite quickly in terms of fintech or in terms of B2B, B2C e-commerce, now you don't see so much of a buzz in B2B digital transformations, because there are 3 particular challenges which are unique to the industry. Firstly, B2B industries have lower margins, and that has a huge impact on how the whole industry operates. Lower margins means you have lower budgets to invest in forward-looking projects like digital transformation. Secondly, the B2B stakeholder relationship is quite complex. Usually in a B2C environment, let's say a retailer, for example, it's quite easy to identify the type of customers, their spend, their patterns, You can give them a loyalty card like the Tesco Club card and figure out a lot of insights into their behaviors. It's a lot more complex in B2B relationships because you have different size of customers and you probably sell them very different products. I'm thinking about industries such as construction material distribution or auto parts distribution or services to other businesses. So the relationship, both externally customer facing and internally, makes any digital transformation in these industries a lot more complex. The other thing is legacy technology. Now, I've walked into B2B businesses here in the UK and found them running ERP systems with a 30 years old. And they tell me it works perfectly fine for them. And it's true, it works for their current business model. But as soon as you think about any form of transformation or a digital transformation to serve their customers through digital channels, then it starts to unravel. Those systems are not fit for purpose. So those are the three unique challenges, I think, facing any B2B digital transformation. And that's the context under which we are approaching this webinar. And let's throw one more bad news in. Given all that complexity, now we got COVID. Now, COVID has accelerated every trend you have seen out there. Things which took 10 years to digitize has happened within like 4 to 5 weeks. You can see that in online grocery sales and any form of online sales or interactions with customers, remote working, etc. The trend has just accelerated beyond anybody's wildest expectation. Now, that gives us the backdrop under which we are operating today. And hopefully through this webinar, what the insights me and Mahesh will share with you will give you some ideas and inspirations on how you can tackle some of these challenges. Now, let's take a step back. What is a digital transformation journey? Now, let's look at this from a 30,000 feet view. Let's take a step back. Forget about your business or your industry. Let's just figure out what a digital transformation journey looks like. And I made this graph because through my career, I observed that not all businesses are in the same part of life cycle or the same part of the journey when they're talking about a digital transformation. They are approaching it from different viewpoints, in terms of where they are, in terms of their maturity. So if you're in early, if you're in the early stage of a digital transformation, this is what I call the honeymoon phase. So there are 4 distinct phases in a digital transformation. And typically, any digital transformation, we are looking at a 3 to 5 years life cycle at least. And the second part, the first part in the honeymoon, basically you're doing basic projects. You're doing some sort of an e-commerce, you're talking directly to your customers on social media, getting insights, you're setting up online chats, basic stuff. And if you're doing this, you tend to get early wins. You don't need to be too smart or spend a lot of money to get this right. It works because the technology is matured. Customers are used to it and there is adoption. So in the honeymoon period, everything is fine and everything is working well, not too much complexities. Now then we get into the next stage, which is the wilderness phase. Now things here are a lot more complex because there's just so many things to be done as part of your digital transformation. What am I talking about here? Now, you now find yourselves having to deal with the people element of it. Suddenly, things which were being done manually before can be digitized. So what do you do with all these people? How do you retrain them, upskill them, etc.? And the processes by which you do things now are completely digitized, and you need to reinvent new processes. And importantly, to do that, you need the right platforms. So you now need to think about making changes to people, processes, and platforms and getting those right. This is where it is wilderness, because I call it wilderness because there's so much coming at you. There's your internal drivers, your CEO wants you to do this, your CFO wants you to do this, and the team is telling you to do something else. And your vendors from outside are coming and telling you about this new shiny technology which will solve all your problems and everybody will be happy. So you got all those noise to manage and still make right decisions consistently so that you can move past the wilderness stage. And this is where a lot of businesses get it wrong, because they approach it from either the technology perspective or the people perspective, and they drop the ball and they don't get return on their digital investment. It goes nowhere, and the bot cuts your budget. This is where digital transformations end. I've seen it end pretty badly, careers wrecked, etc., for quite a few people. But a select group of companies keep an eye on the ball. They get through it, and I will show you in the slides coming up how they do it. And they get to the next the next phase of their digital transformation journey and become a digital native. Now here, much of your business is online, customers are being served online, they're being acquired online, and your back office is not 100% digitized, but a percentage of it is digitized and there's efficiency. These are the businesses which did well in March. So when lockdown happened, everybody was at home, they had to buy everything online, and the businesses which were just in the early stage of the digital transformation couldn't fulfill the orders. So let me give you an example. So I used to work for Holland & Barrett as part of their digital transformation. Holland & Barrett did well because they have been on a digital journey for 10 years, a very mature e-commerce platform, social channels, customer service, ability for employees to work from home. And when sales skyrocketed online, they were able to handle everything quite elegantly. Now, there's another B2B company I worked with or consulted with, and I won't mention their name. It's a publicly listed company. They had a diverse business. Part of their business was restaurants. Part of their business was supplying to hospitals. So they were B2B supplier. A lot of you on this call could recognize that sort of a business. Obviously, the restaurant business went to zero because all the restaurants were closed. Hospital business went up because they were buying supplies. And now the customers had to put a lot of pressure to transact online, get the invoices, services, customer service, etc. And this business struggled a bit, and they couldn't achieve the kind of sales they could have otherwise achieved if their whole process and customer-facing operations were digitized. That's a good example. It's a classic situation. If you just put some lipstick on your window and say, put a pretty picture on it and say, we are digitized. When COVID hit, you were exposed. Only when your back office was fully digitized and functioning well, you could actually serve customers. Now, these companies are still in the digital native space. A few of them then move on to become digital leaders. Who are we talking about here? I'm thinking the likes of Revi. You may not have heard of them. It's a large German supermarket chain, a bit like Tesco's. What they did was they built their own technology. So instead of buying technology, they build their own technology and they build their own engineering capability and data capability. Using that, they are now selling their e-commerce systems to the external market. It's called Commerce Tools. I had the pleasure of working with them. It's a fine product. It's a modern e-commerce platform. So digital leaders now start to change the game upside down. They, instead of becoming technology adopters, they become technology producers, and they become a semi-tech company. Revi is a good example. Obviously, the big one is Amazon. When they invented AWS, which is a cloud service, AWS now powers most of their profits. So when you become a digital leader, two interesting things start to happen. Firstly, the valuation of your business skyrockets. Amazon is valued at 75 times profits. A typical company, one which is in the early stage of its digital transformation, if you got 10 times valuation on your profits, you're pretty okay. The other things is the output per employee. So Amazon is upwards of £1 million of revenue per employee per year. Whereas a typical company is, if you got away with £100,000 revenue per employee per year, you're in a good space. So you can see the metrics just explode by getting the digital transformation right. Becoming a digital leader, puts you in that league and just leaves your competition behind. Now, that's the 30,000 feet views of a digital transformation. Why did I do this first? Why am I sharing this with you first? Because you need to understand the context under which you're operating so that you know exactly where you start and where you finish and which part of the journey you are on. Just having that knowledge gives you a different perspective, a lot more strategic view on where you are on the journey. And also later on, as I share more info with you, you'll figure out it allows you to stop making the kinds of mistakes because you narrowly focus on something small, thinking that that's going to digitally transform the business, which is not. Right. Any questions at this stage? Just feel free to type in. So far, no questions, so I'm assuming that all is well. Right, let's crack on. So why do I know this? So this, what you see on the screen there is basically my sort of career in a nutshell. So I started as a software engineer, and I consider myself very lucky in the sense that the first project I worked on was an e-commerce project. So ever since then, basically all my work has been around the internet, building large systems for big companies or building completely new systems for startups. So I've had the good fortune of working in both the space, large companies such as Toyota, NTT, Saint-Gobain, Juice, and Holland and Barrett, and two startups in the fintech space and the food space. Now, what you learn when you have that sort of perspective, going from a hands-on software engineer to leading digital transformation as a digital director of a £4 billion business, is you figure out what are the things which work and what are the things which don't. And that was sort of my pet obsession. And over the years, what I did was I wrote many of these things down on what makes a successful digital transformation or a digital startup. So it started out me just writing things down as notes, and then it slowly over the years took its, it took a life of its own, as they say, and became a book. And I published the book in December of last year, 2019, and it's now available on Amazon, and it's called Build the Right Thing. If you have Kindle, it's free to download, and you can get to read it. Right. What I'm going to share with you in this webinar is basically the essence which is contained in this book, meaning, how do you compete successfully in a digital business, and how do you start it and align stakeholders so that you can scale. That is the essence of the book. And I'm going to try and distill the book into the next 30 minutes and share that knowledge with you. Right, so let's get into the substance, digital transformation. So what is digital transformation? This was a live audience. We would have a lot of people saying different things by now, but we're on Zoom. So let me answer that question for you myself. So let's define digital transformation. Firstly, let's define what it is not. Digital transformation is not, just setting up a website and say, look, and shouting out to the world, look, we got a website. That would have worked 10 years ago, and it worked pretty well because I was doing that for clients. But now we are in 2020, you need to go much further than that. You need to look at the business holistically and say, look, where's your demand coming from? How are we generating revenues? What generates revenue into this business? And how do we fulfill that service we are promising customers? If it's a product, how do we fulfill the product? How do we get the product to the customer? That whole journey piece needs to be looked at in detail and digitized. That is a modern 2020 digital transformation. And if you don't look at all three angles, you would have one part of a digital transformation, and then you would find, like this B2B retailer found themselves in March. When it comes to scaling up, you can't scale it up because the other parts of it is not functioning. So to me, a definition of a good digital transformation is you are changing the demand side, you are digitizing the demand side, you know exactly how revenues are generated within your business, and you're digitizing that journey, and you know exactly how and who fulfills the customer promise and how that's digitized and optimized, right? So we are looking at people and capabilities on the supply side, on the cost side, and also your technology and your partnerships. That to me is a real digital transformation. Now, as soon as you get into that, you will face 4 pitfalls. As soon as you get into the, move past the honeymoon phase into the wilderness phase, you're going to come up with these 4 pitfalls. So imagine these are your 4 pitfalls or your sinkholes in the forest you have just entered. And they are priorities, people, platforms, and pressure. Now, what do I mean by that? So as I mentioned just now, you're going to have a lot of noise coming at you. You're going to have a lot of priorities, this person, CEO wants this, operations wants this, sales wants this. Which one do you deliver? So getting the priorities right is going to be key for you to deliver early wins, get some ROI on the CapEx, which your finance director or CFO has signed off, and build your credibility and move on. Also, you will encounter a lot of people along the way. Now, ironically, the more you digitize, the more people now you need to convince before you can digitize, right? You would need to convince quite a few people, get their views, deliver a remarkable solution to them before you can proceed further. And once you have gotten those things aligned, you know what you're doing, and you know who you're doing it for and why, then now you come to the tech part. This is where a lot of people make a lot of mistakes, very expensive mistakes. They hire a huge expensive tech consultant, or they buy this very expensive piece of software and try to integrate it, and it doesn't work. So they are stuck with old platforms. They can't get the new platforms to work with the old. And what they set out to do in terms of the customer experience is nowhere near what they imagine. And CDOs on their digital transformation. If they're an operating business, any business which has revenues above 50 million, and they're a trading business with a good number of employees, anything above 200 employees, the closest analogy I can think of is you are trying to build a plane while it's flying in the air. Let me explain what I mean by that, because the business is actually trading. The business needs to generate revenue, just like the plane has to fly in the air to keep alive. If it stops, it's going to fall. Now, at the same time, you are digitally transforming your business while it's trading. So you're building the plane while it's flying, right? And that's how difficult it is to get it right. Now, imagine you decided to rebuild your plane while it's flying, and you're rebuilding it part by part, and you turn around to your left and you figure out there's this now shiny jet flying much faster than you. Now those are your digital competitors. Those are your new shiny startups which is doing something cool in your space, and everybody is looking at them because they're doing something cool, right? So you get pressure. You are pressured both externally and internally to now deliver and build a plane much faster because you got this competition from outside. So those are your 4 pitfalls, and the technique so far, I think it's doom and gloom. So whatever I've shared with you so far, you're probably thinking, wow, maybe I should have spent my hour doing something else. This is so challenging and negative. Now, that's the bad news. Obviously, I'm going to give you the solution to this. If you manage these 4 things, at least now that you know these are the 4 things you need to manage, if you manage this well, you know, your chance of success in a digital transformation is going to be that much higher. Half of success is knowing what not to do, right? So if you figure that half out, the rest of it tends to take care of itself pretty much. And you do that by pivoting or framing everything around the customer journey. And that really is the essence of this webinar, the essence of my book. If you took any one point away from this presentation, it's this thing. Frame your whole digital transformation around the customer you're trying to serve and delight, and everything else will start to fall in. And I'm going to go into the details and share with you specifically how to do that. When you do that, you will get your priorities right. You will get your early wins, and you will get momentum. You will get an ROI on your spend, and your board will continue to fund you. And you will align your people when you center it around the customer. Your teams and wider stakeholders within the business would align with you, especially when you do it in a visual way, as I'm going to show you. And it's easy then to decide the tech which is useful and the tech which is not, because you can clearly see the customer journey and see where the technology fits in or doesn't fit in. While you're doing this, if you're doing this well, it gives you the confidence to stay the course, and you can negate the pressure. And if you're actually a big trading company at the moment, and you've got a small incumbent making a small disruptor making a lot of noise, actually you are in an advantageous position, because if your digital transformation is successful, you can buy out the disruptors, at a fairly low value. And I've seen one company do this really well. So that's your price. So if you follow this methodology, which has worked for a lot of the clients I've worked with, Mahesh has worked with, you will get the benefits. You will get these 4 things solved, and that will set you up to succeed in your digital transformation. So the number one is the number one lever you need to do is you understand your B2B customer journey. You need to segment which is the customer you're going to serve. As a B2B business, you probably have different segments. You could have a one-man shop buying from you. You could have a PLC company with 50,000 employees buying from you. So when I was digital director of Juicen, that's our case, because you got all these white man, as we used to call them, white man builders who are trading by themselves, buying materials from Juicen. You also have the Taylor Wimpey's and the Barrots of this world, PLC companies, also buying construction material from us. So you've got a huge variety of customers. You need to be able to segment them correctly and then start to map the existing journey through your business. Now, that is the most critical part. You need to understand the exact journey they take through the business, and then refrain from coming up with a solution. You need to get, as I call it, you need to get a PhD in your customer problems. You really need to understand the pain point as they go through the business. And once you have done that, then you can start to solutionize. Then you can engage your team to say, what does a digital solution looks like? When you do that, then you will create remarkable solutions, which when you put in front of your customers, they will adopt quickly because it solves a pain for them. And you do this through a systematic process. And this diagram shows you that. You identify the problems, pain points, frictions, whatever you call it. And then for each of those, you test with a small solution. So that's the yellow dots, right? For everyone, you test a small solution. Once the solution is effective, once your customer likes it and gives you a thumbs up and say, that's great, you solved my problem and it works for me. That's the green dots. Now, this is a solution. Now you can put money behind and you can scale it. Now, that's how startups do it. That's the lean methodology which startups use to find the product market fit before they can scale it. Now, the previous diagram is the theoretical concept, right? You're not in your own business, you're not going to be able to use that. You need a diagram which looks like this, where you have mapped your customer journey in a lot more detail. So this is one we did. This is not for a B2B customer, unfortunately, but it's still relevant. It's a B2C property development company building properties specifically for Airbnb rentals. And this is a journey for their customer. And this is a good example because you map the entire journey from beginning to end and how they contact you. Do they text you? Do they email you? Do they call you? And all the various interactions and pain points. That way you can start to get the pain points of the customer, your PhD in your customer problems. That's when you can start to digitize it. Let me give you an example and sort of bring it to life. So while we were at Houston, we did the same exercise, mapping out a builder's journey, specifically a small builder, 1 to 3 people who are, buying X amount of construction materials from us. And when we did that, right at the end of the journey, we came up with something very interesting, and which we didn't know before. We found that builders struggled with their tax filing every year. And we didn't realize this. Obviously, the taxes had nothing to do with us. We sold construction materials and they paid us 30 days later. And that was the end of the transaction mostly. Now, this was a very interesting insight for us because we realized that in more digitized industries like banking, for example, you can get your bank statement online, download it as an Excel file and send it off to your accountant. And we were thinking, why don't we do that? If we did that, that solves a very big pain for the builder. Every tax year, all his invoices will be in one place, and he can, just, with an email, send it off to his accountant. Whether the accountant use Xero, QuickBooks, or whichever accounting software, it would be compatible. Now, that was sort of a light bulb moment for us, because what that meant when we spoke to the builder was that the builder was more likely to trade with one brand, so in this case, Juicy, than to split his invoices across competitors, like Travis Perkins or other competitors. What that meant was this solution would influence the builder's buying decision further up the chain. So he was less likely to buy on price. He was thinking, look, if I went to this other guy just for this one purchase, my one invoice out of 300 is going to be that other guy, and it's going to be a nightmare. So I'll just buy it from Juicen. So that worked well, and we were able to test this, and this shaped our thinking when we built the digitized solution for that segment of customers. So this reinforces a point. When you understand your customer journey from beginning to end and all the friction, not just the friction with you, but the entire friction, you can start to shape solutions which will help that customer. Now, lever 2 is once you got your priorities right, once you go through lever 1, you would have identified all the different priorities which you need to be working on. Now, next step is this joyful task of convincing all your colleagues within your business, your line manager, your board, to now believe in your project and invest in it, right? So that's a task in itself in any company, let alone a B2B organization, right? So now you need to get people aligned with you. And when I did the strategy for Juicen, I think it was 2012. So this was what kept me in the office into the late hours of the night, because how do I convince Peter, Mark, Jones, all of these guys? How do I, sales director? How do I convince all these guys and make the project aligned to their priorities as well? And I came up with this, and this was really what changed the game for me. And it's a visual way of presenting that same customer journey. So I hooked up with a designer within the office and said, look, let's map the customer journey in a very visual, simple one-pager. So the one-page part is super important. Let's map that journey and let's share it with all our stakeholders who are going to be touched by this digital transformation. And the 3 circles you see there are deliberately made so that we can start with the innermost circle, which is basically what happens to the customer today. So the customer comes into the store, buys the product, checks the product information, makes an order, pays at the store, and we manage the relationship in terms of invoicing. Now, the next layer is the immediate digital transformation. What if we digitize this, provide an e-commerce, provided all the product information online, basic ordering, payment online, invoicing online. Now, people agree to this because it's not too big a jump, because they can see that we are taking the customer approach, and we are adding to a customer benefit, and it's all visual, so they can imagine what they're going to get. The third layer is more the visionary stuff. Ideally, where do we want to end up? We want to do X, Y, Z in 5 years' time. This should be our customer experience. So we can create a visionary pool. We are working towards this great vision, and also we are grounded. We are starting from basics. We are putting the customer at the core of this. Literally, you can see the customer is at the core of that digital transformation journey. And this one slide was my sort of masterpiece, I would say, because this won me all the budgets, all the stakeholder alignment. And basically, this is your flag. You salute it if this is a digital transformation and you get on with it. There was one quirky side effect. I'm not sure if you can figure it out from this diagram, because this goes in concentric circles in clockwise arrows. By the time I take people around it takes 10 minutes. Most of them are hypnotized, right? People tell me that, like, you just take them around and think it's a good way to hypnotize your stakeholders. That's a free, that's a free tip for you, and hopefully that works for you, right? So there's something about a visual presentation, that's something graphic about it, something almost beautiful about it, a bit like Apple, which aligns people towards you, right? Now, hopefully, if you took anything away, that mapping exercise, mapping the customer journey, making it very visual, creating a vision for your digital transformation will get you past your priorities and your people. When you come to the more technical aspects of things, obviously to do the digital transformation, now you need to have the right platforms. Whether you do it with your existing platforms or you bring in completely new platforms, that's a choice you need to make. People like Mahesh advise businesses on exactly those kind of choices, because they are the techies side of things. They know exactly which platforms. But if you were to talk to Mahesh with that customer journey diagram, with that vision, he's probably going to come back with a lot more clearer answer, one which is going to get you to your end result, because he now knows what you are exactly working on. And again, mapping that journey, again, I did this for a client recently, and mapping, they were a big Oracle house, so the entire system for some reason was running on Oracle. We mapped it against the different customer journey, and we, to our, not my shock, they are shocked, we found out that 40% of their systems were not doing anything. They were not doing anything valuable on the customer journey. And the net result was that we were able to recommend much leaner, more cost-effective system based on API microservices, and they can build those internally or together with a partner and own that intellectual property themselves. Net result, 40% systems reduced, just completely not used, almost a 650,000, more than that, in annual savings, 650,000 pounds in annual savings. This client decided that they would actually reinvest all of that into building an engineering capability. So they were able to hire 15 engineers. Very, very importantly, they went from 6-month release cycles to 2-week release cycles. So every 2 weeks, twice a month, they were releasing new features to their customers and iterating on the back of that. So huge change in terms of their agility and their scalability. So we have covered the priorities, the people, and the platforms. We promised you 3 levers, but I'm going to throw in a 4th lever, which is actually, remember that shiny plane which was flying by while you were rebuilding your team? That's your disruptors. And you can actually, with the same customer journey mapping process, you can identify new disruptive business models. So Homegrown is a property crowdfunding platform I co-founded with two other founders in 2016. It basically digitized the property investment journey for high-end London properties, right? So if you're funding property developers, you did it in a completely manual, opaque way before. We made that into a completely digitized online banking experience like way, which you can do it in minutes in a fully trusted FCA regulated platform, right? So you can you can disrupt a whole industry using that same model. And this Homegrown is probably a good example of how you do that. If you go into the book, there is a detailed case study on how we did it on mapping the current journey and the digitized journey, right? So far, hopefully, we have shared with you the levers which you can use uh, to aid your own B2B digital transformation. And I'm going to, okay, we come back to the benefits. So when you do that, you're going to get your priorities right, launch people, platforms, and manage the pressure. Now I'm going to hand it over to Mahesh. So Mahesh is from Calton Tech. He's the CEO of the UK operations here. He has done a lot more things on the tech side, helping B2B business with their technology transformation linked to their digital strategy. So I'm going to hand it over to Mahesh, and then I'll come back and do the Q&A. Over to you, Mahesh.
Okay, thank you, Haja. I hope you can hear me right.
I can hear you. Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, Haja, if you could shift to the next slide, please. Yeah. So just quickly introducing Kelton. I know, Kelton again is a global mid-size IT services company. We have presence in US, Europe, as well as in APAC. And within Europe here, UK, Ireland, and Poland are the places where we have offices. Globally, we are about 1,500 people, and we are a CMMI level 5 company and a public listed organization. So it gives a lot of comfort to our clients that our books are regularly audited and by analysts as well as by the auditors. But at the same time, we are not too big to lose the core focus, which is the agility. So when people ask me, hey, what differentiates you? I mean, why are you different? Of course, I mean, there are many companies out there, but one thing that clearly stands out, if I have to say, for Kelton, that would be the agility with stability. We are a reasonably sized, public listed, stable organization, and at the same time, because we are a digital born company, we do not lose that agility and flexibility that is very much important. As Aja was mentioning, you need a right partner in implementing the technology to support your digital transformation initiatives. So that's where we come in. So Haja, if you could just move to the next slide. Thank you. Yeah. So just one case study I wanted to talk about here about one of the clients which is very similar into B2B kind of a space. So Dominion is a but one of the challenges that they have been right. They have like manufacturers.
Mahesh, you were breaking up there. The audio was breaking up a bit. If you can repeat from the top of the slide, I think it's better. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So as I was saying, Luminious is part of the Schneider Electric Group, which is into the manufacturing of inverter UPS and batteries, and they were having huge challenges in B2B in terms of retailers. They have a traditional way of working, right? Like any and they after the orders have to go this channel, they used to run orders punched in time, and a lot of kind of
I'm not sure about the others, but slightly breaking up there. Krishna, can you hear Mahesh?
No, it is breaking
okay,
up.
maybe let me switch to the speaker.
Audio. Yeah, that's better, Mahesh.
Okay, is this better, Haja, Krishna?
Yeah, sounds better, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think some issue with the microphone, yeah, okay. Yeah, so Luminous was facing these challenges in the B2B distribution channel, and there was a lot of pain that dealers and the distributors were going through because the orders were not getting punched in, or the field sales executive who used to do the beat, he used to typically come once a week or once every 2 weeks, and they used to miss out on any offers that the company was running, and they had this the pain of, hey, I'm buying the same thing at a slightly higher rate as compared to the other dealers in the area and everything. So what we have done is we have created a dealer platform for them. This is something that was completely ground up done, which wasn't not existing. And they had an ERP system at the back end and the other systems that they were using for production control, manufacturing, and even like sales forecasting, etc. So we created a dealer self-service kind of a platform, which is used by their distributors as well as the dealers. And the information is also readily available for the field sales executive who used to visit these B2B different channels. And with this, what happened is the dealers are able to look at what offers are going on in terms of order. Maybe I may be ordering like 50 batteries every time. It's one of the boring businesses, right? I mean, it's not that way. I'm going to have like thousands of SKUs. At the end of the day, my SKUs is few tens or maybe 200 SKUs at max. So the number of items are not going to change much, but maybe instead of ordering 50, if I order 60, there may be some additional volume discount that I may receive, or instead of ordering 50, if I may have to double my order and get a significantly better pricing, I may choose to do that. So dealers and the B2B, the customers of they are self-empowered, and they used to take those decisions based on, hey, what makes best sense for me, how much I can sell, and everything. And likewise, for the company, what happened is this provided almost near real time, not exactly real time, but near real time kind of an information into the demand, the forecasted demand. So maybe my production planning is looking to manufacture home inverter batteries, but wait a bit, what I see is I have much more demand on the industrial side of the batteries. So my production planning can now take this information and bake it into their production plans. So that way, the company got significantly benefited because the working capital cycle, which is a very important, right? And particularly for a company which is in the growth stage and there is a cost to capital associated, the faster you can change your working capital cycle, the faster you can convert your raw materials into products and make it into cash, the better it is. This significantly helped the financials of the company. Likewise, also sorted out the issues for the dealers. They are able to now, on real-time basis, see what's happening with the orders and where they are and how they will be delivered and everything. Because of this platform, overall, the company has experienced a 22% plus increase in the top line in less than 2 years. And that's a huge benefit. And because of which, what happened,
there is a strong buy-in, as Haja was mentioning, like, buying the stakeholder into and convincing them that why the digital transformation journey is important, that happened. And there is a strong buy-in that for the digital roadmap, and now which is across the company, nobody questions or challenges the need to go digital and to build in much more technology-based roadmaps. So this is the benefits that we have done. And so likewise, again, there are multiple industries and multiple companies we work for in the B2B distribution space and the otherwise. So we can help in terms of helping you identify, or there may be an existing project which may be not up to the mark, or is not going as per the plan, and you need some technology help there. So we can come in, evaluate, and help you on that side as well.
Thanks, Mahesh. I mean, that's, brings to sort of life the kind of practical digital transformation, B2B business like Luminous and Schneider Electric go through. Even small solutions like this, where you are digitizing the data into the sales team, self-servicing that, makes a difference, because now they can make decisions on their own, and they are empowered to go and sell and focus on sales rather than producing spreadsheets for the head office, right? I've been speaking with, coincidentally, I was speaking with the CIO just before this call. He's going through a very, very similar project of getting data into the hands of his salespeople so that they are not producing spreadsheets and pivot tables. Great, thank you for that practical example. So I suppose maybe it's worth sharing with the audience here. What Caltech is good at is the nuts and bolts, the technology behind delivering this sort of a transformation, putting in place the right technology, whether it's cloud-based or on-premises based, architecting that, and bringing in the engineers and the tech talent and developers to deliver that. Right? All right, cool. So I think we've got we've come to the Q&A. A very digitized Q&A, as you can see from the slide. So anyway, happy to take questions at this stage. What are you guys working on? What sort of B2B projects you are working on? Feel free to share as much as you can, without obviously breaking confidentiality. And we are more than happy to share our perspective on it. So I know that we also have a YouTube live stream going on, so we may get questions from there as well. Great. So Akash, any questions so far from the YouTube audience?
Not yet.
Okay, that's fine. We will give it a couple of minutes, and while we do that, I'm happy to share a digital transformation story with you. This customer journey process I shared with you, there's some insights as to why it works repeatedly. I had a colleague actually, and she started off in working in the stores, and now she's actually vice president of customer experience for the group at a customer level, right? Anybody wants to guess? I really wish this was more interactive. If there was a live audience, we could make it interactive. But anybody wants to guess how she made that? And she did that jump, working in a store to going to a VP of customer experience for the group, not one business. The group has a 40 billion euro turnover within a span of like 5 years. How she did that, and I can't mention her name because she is still in that role. I don't want to break confidentiality. How she did that was every time she spoke to her top managers, it was always about the customer. she always say, this is right for the customer. This is not right for the customer. Our customers won't like this because X, Y, Z. So when the executive went to her with a Miss M, can we do this initiative? What do you think? She would say, yeah, that works because our customers do this. Just that customer focus, just that thinking about the customer repeatedly. And she had this sort of quite a unique ability. She knew the customer experience in her head. So she had that map, which I shared with you, in her head. And that contributed to her success, not just her career success, but the success of the business. So she was always thinking about what the customer was experiencing, what journey were they on. And that was an amazing story. This lady doesn't have an MBA, doesn't have a big degree from Oxbridge or Harvard. And she started in the stores on minimum wage, and now she's got to this, and she's completely well deserved. Her step up is completely well deserved, and that was because. And I've seen a few people like this, not to the same extent as Ms. M, but to similar extent, they have catapulted their careers because they were customer focused. And when you put it down into a visual one-pager, something stunning, beautiful, which attracts people and draws them to what you're doing, people become curious. And when they see that you're putting effort into creating something beautiful and thought through it, they are more likely to support you. That's why the customer journey framework works. And it also works in the other way. One of the hazards of being a digital director or a CTO is this: you get approached by all kinds of suppliers, software suppliers, system integrators, consulting companies, all quite powerful people wanting to sell you X, Y, Z, and this and that. And they are, consummate salespeople. They will use all the right words, blah, blah, blah. And how do you tell them politely, this is what we are doing? And again, the journey framework helps. I always share it with them and say, this is what we're doing, Mr. X. Does your product or service you sell helps me deliver this digital transformation based on this, or it doesn't? 95% of them go away because it doesn't fit with what we are doing, right? So there are, I can go on and I can spend the next 3 hours just talking about the benefits of doing the customer journey process and putting that at the center of your digital transformation. But I won't because we don't have time, but you're more than welcome to, reach out to us after this, and, we can do a one-to-one consultation with you. Obviously, in the meantime, if you want to go and grab the book and read it, we can do that. We got a number of questions coming through, so I'm going to take the first one. Don't worry, we will get through all of the questions. We're at 11:58. We're going to overrun by a few minutes, so bear with us. I'm going to try and get to this question quickly. Okay, so hello, Haja. In your experience, sorry, I don't have a name for this attendee, anonymous, but it says, hello, Haja. In your experience, how have mid-sized firms been able to manage the budgets for digitizing their landscapes? Do they prioritize plans, or do they partner with tech firms or IT firms? Okay. Right, so mid-sized firms, the good news is you probably can do it faster because you don't have the complexity or the scale of a big organization, right? That's the good news. If you work out your plans in terms of your customer experience, what do you want to deliver for your customer experience, and how is it going to impact your revenues and sales? Right, sorry. Have I come back now? Okay. Okay, sorry. I think I'm going to start answering that question because when I clicked on the question, it seems to have frozen up. Okay, let me just repeat my answer. Okay, so the question was, how do mid-sized firms manage their budgets in terms of their digital transformation? Do they partner with IT or tech partners? Let me just read that question again. Tech firms, IT firms. Okay, cool. Okay, so basically he's asking about partnering external. So the good news is that as a mid-sized organization, you don't have the complexity. It's easier for you to probably map your customer journey and understand that. Once you have done that, it becomes a lot easier to decide. So your question basically is, do we build it ourselves or buy it? Do I go and buy software or get somebody to develop it, or do I develop it myself? So those are the three options, right? Once you have mapped your journey, the next step in identifying the technology is to just do a quick scan in the market. Are there tools out there which does it, which does most of your journey? You will never find a tool which does 100% of your customer's journey. It just happens to be that way. No software will fit your organization perfectly. You could find a tool which does 70%, and then the next 30, you could make a strategic decision. I will customize the 30% which is required, and that gets me what I need. Or you might decide, okay, we are going to exit this business as an IPO or a buyout. I need to build intellectual property. In that case, you might decide, okay, I'm going to spend a bit more, put a bigger budget to it, but I'm going to build this intellectual property within the organization. So at a high level, again, going back to the customer journey mapping, you start there, and then you work out, whether you do it internally, externally, or you buy software. But we don't have your name and the question, but Mahesh and I would be more than happy to, if you contact us. On the next slide, I'm going to show you how to contact us. If you contact us, let me just, okay, so you can find my name, my contact, and Mahesh's contact. If you reach out to us, we would be more than happy to have a private one-to-one consultation where you can share more and we can guide you based on what we have done before. Hopefully that answers question number 1. Let me take question number 2. Okay, we got Nimki who has asked a question. How has COVID impacted the ROI of the digitization roadmap? Has the time-bound ROI gone down as compared to how you'd have it up in pre-COVID? Okay, so there's 2 questions in there, Nimki. How has COVID impacted the ROI of the digitalization roadmap? Right, okay. Now, okay, so there's this question by Nimki, how has COVID impacted ROI of digitization roadmap? And second question she has asked is, has the ROI gone down as a result of that? Okay, now, COVID, obviously we are still in the situation, it's evolving, but what COVID has done is basically just exposed a lot of things. Meaning, what delivers ROI, what delivers value, and what is just a shiny project, etc. I'll give you an example, and probably it brings it to life. Recently, what we found, banks like NatWest, which is a big high street bank in the UK, a few other businesses, they're closing down their accelerators. So what they used to do, they used to try and incubate companies in accelerators in London. So they used to have this shiny office, Google-like, and then they put in some startups and they try to incubate them. Now, it didn't make sense, right? Like, what has a bank got to do with that? You want the market forces to surface this accelerator. They did that because they called it part of their digital transformation. Those of us who are involved in that space knew that this wasn't going to work. So when COVID hit, the first thing to be shut down are these accelerators. That's a good indicator. All the non-essential projects, all the shiny, nice-to-do projects, because it was somebody's brainy idea, are being shut down. What is still being kept are the projects which are delivering value to their core customers, right? That goes back to our previous slides. If you know your core customer, their pain points and their journey, and if you're digitizing that, you are still going to get an ROI. So hopefully, it's a big topic, Nimki, but in terms of ROI on core value-adding projects, I would say COVID has accelerated it. But on projects which don't add value, shiny, nice to have pet projects, COVID has decimated them. It's basically killed those projects. And in terms of expectations, probably, the few examples that springs to mind, it has actually given people more of a bandwidth. I know of projects, digital transformation projects, which were in flight, and there was a lot of pressure to deliver that, because once COVID hit, the lockdown happened, people started working from home. Boards have been more tolerant, in my view, cutting the non-essential stuff, but the essential stuff, they know that this is the time to invest. This is the time to make strategic bets that when the recession ends, they can start to harvest the benefits. So that's a big topic. Again, if we understood the context under which you're working, we would be happy to share more insights into it. Obviously, we would be very eager to learn exactly what you are doing as well. So feel free to get in touch. So the way to do that, I've answered the questions. If the way to get in touch is, our context is on the screen. Mahesh and their team will be reaching out to you over the next few days to just follow up if we have delivered value on this. If you would like us to get in a book, a one-to-one consultation, in the Q&A, just leave your name and put in yes, something to that effect. Just put in yes in the Q&A, put in your name and your email address, or the comments box on YouTube. Do that. We will come back to you and hopefully set up a consultation where we can go into this a lot more deeper. Now, I hope we have delivered value to you today. I genuinely want to thank you for your time. You are all of you who are working on digital transformation. If there's one job which is really secure now, that's it. You are in the right place. Keep at it. And hopefully the content we have shared with you is useful to deliver digital transformation accelerated. You know how to reach us. Get in touch with us. We would love to know what you're working on, and happy to share any more insights. And I want to thank you, Mahesh. Yeah, maybe you want to close it off. Good, brilliant. All right, guys, thank you very much. We will end the call here. Hopefully, we will get to speak to as many of you as possible. Thank you. Have a good day.
Hello, Krishna. Hello, Krishna. Hello.
Yeah, I made you the host.
Yeah, 1 second.